Time for another draft. Physics.com, debatephysics.com also. Video presentation. So in the debate context, argument, counter argument. So again, the cranks, trolls, whatever. They keep making arguments that are just so off the subject, are just plainly so frickin' wrong. And they just assert it. And again, no evidence ever produced refuting anything I'm saying. So just really irritating. So they're now arguing for some sort of instantaneous gravity. Now I'm just saying I don't think an honest physicist could say that it isn't 9.8 meters per 1 second units. That is, if I do a half second, I change the 9.8 to 4.9. And if I do a quarter second, I did it. And the fact is that I could actually make it some kind of tiny amount in some kind of tiny amount of time. So the fact that gravity happens in these units of time, it doesn't mean it happens in 1 second units. It can happen in 10 seconds. You could use 10 seconds, or you could use 1/10 of a second, or 1,000th of a second, or 1 millionth of a second. And there's the amount of force goes linearly up, okay, proportional to the amount of time. That's how it actually works. Your velocity, your absorption of the force is a linear line. So it's just ridiculous. In terms of the absorption of your velocity, let's just say, is a linear line. Now they're going to argue that somehow your velocity is a quadratically increasing your energy, but we're just saying the velocity acquired is clearly linear and it's clearly time dependent. So that part just can't be denied. It is not, there's no such thing as an instantaneous velocity. There's just smaller and smaller pieces of time and smaller pressure in those smaller pieces of time. You just can't deny that and be a reasonable person. You can't deny that and be reasonably educated in the subject of physics and how things work. So anyway, Gary's claim. Pressure isn't instantaneously acquired or applied. Just obviously. Gravity needs time to apply weight. That is, yes, it's going to apply a tiny fraction of the weight, pressure in the first millisecond of a free fall, and then it's going to keep increasing with the amount of time. The faster you move, the less you weigh. So obviously when you're moving across a surface, you're breaking the process, and then you're only applying the little tiny portions of your acceleration onto the ground in any 1 inch of space. So it's just an absolute fact that you're spreading your weight over a much larger surface. Absolute fact. At high enough speed, you become weightless. Yes, theoretically, you go fast enough, the gravity doesn't push you down sufficiently for you to weigh anything. Just a fact. Okay. I mean, it's a fact in the sense that it's a speed of light force. So it's like arguing photons. How many photons can hit you? If you move the speed of light across a path of photons, how many can actually hit you, right, in this direction? You'd argue that, well, none can, because I went as fast as they're moving. So how could they possibly hit me, right? So, but there might be a fraction. Tiny fraction of them might actually still be able to move into you, but it'd be a tiny fraction. I mean, so minuscule that you almost couldn't calculate it. Okay, let's see. So now let's assume it is true and see what follows. Well, what will follow is exactly what the physics does, because it's nothing different than sunlight, and it's nothing different than paint spray, and it's nothing different than any of those comparable constant forces. It's no different than wind or a stream or any force pushing on something. And if gravity needs time to apply weight, then weight equals F times exposure time. Well, of course, we've already established that weight actually just equals F. So, the net force. But yes, if you want to include a net force, you want to talk about a constant force, then you have to talk about the time you're exposed to the constant force. But yes, F equals weight. I mean, F equals W equals MV equals pressure equals, yes, they're all the same thing. Heat. Okay, and since exposure time decreases when you move faster over a surface, weight must decrease with horizontal speed. Well, it's just obvious that your deflection by the force, okay, is affected by how fast you go. So that's been illustrated so many different ways. I mean, moving through a gravitational field, going across a stream, It's just an absolute fact that you go less downstream the faster you go across the stream. So it's just an absolute fact, can't be denied. All right, so standing still, full weight. Walking, slightly less weight. So there's no slightly less weight. There's a clear line. You're either going faster than you can collect the force, or you're going slower. Anything slower will be your full weight. Anything faster will be something less. So there's obviously a speed requirement, a minimum speed. So walking isn't going to change anything because you're allowing plenty of time for your full weight to be realized. So you have to first be moving fast enough. So if you're walking very, very fast, but we're talking about cartoon kind of, road runner, kind of silly walking to be able to get the effect. So yes, but it's just like the running across the hot coals or something else. So you could just compare it to some other mechanism where it's just about how long you're on the coals, frankly, is going to decide how burned your feet are. And that's always going to be true. And there's just a different minimum standard for when you go from being not damaged to being damaged. And it's just going to be some unit of time that'll decide that. So I can make different bridges out of different substances that'll collapse under different amounts of weight, and I'll change how the minimum amount of time you need to collapse the bridge, because I'm going to be changing how much the bridge supports the weight you're producing. But the fact is, you need to go a minimum speed to defeat the gravity, that is, to reduce it. If you're going below the minimum speed, you'll always weigh. You can't weigh more by standing somewhere. You can only weigh what you weigh. But it is a constant force, goes right straight through from you into the bridge. But I can't weigh more than I weigh on the bridge. All right. So going slower won't make me weigh more. So it's not the idea that there's a zero somewhere. There's a minimum speed, and that minimum speed will decide whether you can now reduce how much you weigh. All right, running, even less. So this is just bullshit, even less. It's true for these later ones. This earlier one, no. There's a minimum speed. I'll say it one time, and that's all. There's a minimum speed you have to go to defeat gravity. Below that minimum, it doesn't matter. Already this contradicts thousands of force plate measurements in biomechanics labs. So just lie. So he keeps making assertions that this does something because he has some evidence somewhere and won't produce the evidence. So go ahead and show us where a force plate says you instantaneously weigh 150 pounds. No matter how I drop you on the plate, you weigh instantly 150 pounds. Because the fact is the force plate will make a curved line. It will show that as I lower you, you weigh less and less and less, more and more and more as I put more of your weight on the plate. And there's no way to apply something without it being an acceleration. Now, if you already have a velocity, then you already have momentum, okay, and so that will be a much sharper increase because we're really just measuring your actual momentum you've already acquired. But let's continue. Cars weight lighter as they accelerate. It's an absolute fact. So this is so funny. I mean, what does he think those little wings on the back of the cars are for? So all the high speed, the Formula One especially, has a big fat wing right above the back of the car. What do you think it's there for? Oh, that's right. It's to make the car heavier. That is to push the car down into the road, because the fact is, it is becoming so light, it's not making any contact with the road and it won't go. So the only way they can make the car go is to push it into the ground with some other force, because gravity isn't enough. So ironic much? Yeah, obviously. All right, the car at rest weighs mg. The car reduces weight then. At 100 kilometers, it weighs less. It's a fact. It does, in fact, weigh less per foot of surface. Absolute fact. It's digging in less on the surface. It's pushing into the surface less. So again, this is like going through mud. You go through mud really fast, you just skid right across the surface. You go slow, you sink into the mud, and you drown. So, I mean, it's just so obvious. You can do this on water, You can skip things across the water. How are you doing it? I mean, it's just amazing that you have to make these arguments. That he hasn't seen the fact that it's, the fact is that you are making less contact with the surface, and that's just obvious. All right, 200 kilometers an hour, it weighs even less. Yes, and when you get up to 500 or 600, you'll end up basically just flying across the surface. What we observe, question mark. Yes, of course it's what we observe. Suspension would raise as speed increases. It happens. Tire compression would decrease. Well, I know. This is tires don't show any pressure changes, frankly. They really don't. Okay, I mean, the tire's got 30 pounds of pressure. It's got 30 pounds of pressure. It's 30 pounds. It can't be changed. Scales embedded in the highway would show decreasing weight with speed. And that's exactly the point. So they actually do have scales that measure trucks, on turnpikes. But I don't know if they can do that time thing. But clearly, yes, that's exactly the provable theory, is that you will acquire less of a weight the faster it moves across the scale. This does not happen. So that's your assertion. It's a silly one. It doesn't. You can't back it up with evidence. It's a real fact. It does in fact happen. You're a silly jackass. All right. Highways, weigh stations measure full truck weight whether moving slowly or quickly. So again, where do you have any evidence of that whatsoever? I've seen trucks being weighed. They can't drive across the scale. They have to stay on the scale. They have to drive onto the scale and stay there. They can't just drive over the scale. All right, airplanes would become weightless just by speeding up. An airplane in level flight must satisfy lift equals mg. So this isn't the part of the conversation, right? Because we know that, manipulating the atmosphere is not the subject of gravity. So we know it's not an anti-gravity device. That is, wings aren't defeating gravity, they're overcoming gravity. So it's just pointless to bring this up. If increasing horsepower reduces weight, the faster the plane goes, the less lift required, the less wing required. That's the fact. Okay, eventually, at high enough speed, lift would not be needed. Well, it's an absolute fact. It's true. So I don't know. I mean, you're really making really dumb arguments, but it's just an absolute fact that if I got enough velocity, I don't need any lift. All right, the plane could turn off the wings and still not fall. Yes, if it just has a trajectory, but there's no, obviously, if you turn off the wing, if you turn off the propeller on either a missile or a plane, it's not going to stay in the air. But that is false. So again, lie. You have no evidence for any of this. So it's just a litany of him stating something that's just not true. Aircraft require lift to full weight regardless of horizontal speed. So again, he just keeps saying it, and it's not true. The weight depends on the time exposure. Then gravity force itself would vary depending on how long you've been in contact with the surface. How could it possibly vary? It's 9.8 meters of accrued velocity per second. That means a certain weight per second. So I could say it's a certain number of ball bearings you collect per second. You can't change how many ball bearings you're collecting per second. And if they're going into the ground, they're just hitting you and then going through you into the ground, you're getting drained of them, then yes, at no point can you have any extra velocity. You can't accrue. You can't save velocity. You can't have a continuous velocity because the ground is absorbing it, taking away from you. So the counter force, so to speak, is consuming your effort. So you don't get to keep any of it. So you don't accrue a velocity. So of course it's, whatever. This would mean if you suddenly stopped moving, your weight would gradually ramp up. Well, it's a fact that if you're going very fast and then you start slowing down, you'll sink further and further into the mud. If you stepped into a scale, the reading would slowly climb over seconds. Well, why would it be seconds? So you're again assuming that the force is somehow comes in some second clump, because we arbitrarily like to use seconds, and we put 9.8 per 1 second. It could easily be 4.9 per half second. So again, you're just ignoring the fact that you can make it in milliseconds. This does not happen, says you. So again, you're arguing that scales don't gradually get to the weight, and of course they do gradually get to the weight. They don't instantaneously pop to the weight. So you're just a liar. It does, in fact, happen. The scale readings stabilize almost instantly, whatever almost instantly is. So again, this was baby talk. Obviously, it doesn't happen instantly or anywhere close to it. And I could use a high-speed camera to show how it's nowhere close to instant anything. So just lie, lie, lie. The hammer test, simple and devastating. Oh, I don't think so. Drop a metal ball onto a force sensor. If Gary is right, the force should start near zero and increase gradually with gravity, applying weight. Well, it is actually what happens. So if you have a force sensor, you will see it does have to do this acceleration-deceleration thing. So it's no different than anything else. What actually happens, this force spike appears immediately. Okay, says you. So go ahead and show us that demonstration. I haven't seen it, so you go ahead and show it to us. Now, I know that Alpha Phoenix guy hit a steel rod at one end, and he found that the metal can't transmit the motion any faster than the speed of sound in the steel. So it's incredibly slow by speed of light standards. It's insanely slow. A couple of thousand miles per hour. That's all it can do. It can't transmit information any faster than that. And somehow you're saying your force sensor can defeat that? It can go the speed of light? Prove it. Anyway, let's see. The force spikes appear immediately. No, they don't. Often it exceeds body weight. So you're saying a force sensor is like a spring and it exaggerates weight? I'm saying no, it doesn't. It just has to do with how much motion you're hitting the scale with. Obviously, when you put something on a scale, unless you slide it, onto the scale, you're going to be, in a sense, dropping it on the scale. That is, you're putting it and then releasing it and applying its weight. So there's always going to be some fudginess. But I don't think these digital sensors exaggerate a weight. The needle doesn't swing too far. There is no gravity ramp up, so says you, liar. Alright, what is really happening when running over a scale? If you run across a bathroom scale and it reads low, that's because, so how the fuck could he possibly come up with any other reason than because you're not on the scale long enough? Alright, the scale averages readings over time, so we know that doesn't happen. A regular spring scale doesn't average anything, so lie some more. Your foot contact is brief. Well, isn't that the definition of the whole argument, you moron? Yeah, it is. The display never stabilizes. Well, whatever that even means. I don't even know what that means. It never stabilizes? Alright. I mean, you're just this is just pathetic shit. Okay, so, these people are just so despicable. I mean, this is a pile of horrid gibberish. None of this counteracts the argument. Alright, is a measurement artifact not reduced gravity? So, prove it. Show me the experiment where you measured an artifact. If you use a high-speed force plate, they're not high speed. They test, at a rate, 500 times a second, some sort of number, and they have a limitation where they can't really sense changes. Okay, so you can defeat the accuracy of the scale by just trying to do this sensing, okay, faster than it can produce a change in the what the result will be. But it's just like any it's still reading weight, but it's not storing it like a spring. So obviously one of those force plates, you put something on it, you can't release it in some way and make it push something. So you can't turn it horizontally and then shoot something as you can do with a spring, because it's not storing any of the force. But it still has to measure the force in units that are as you're applying it. Like I said, there's a real application of the force. There's a real deceleration of any object hitting the ground. It has to apply its force continuously until it stops moving. You see force equals to or greater than the body weight instantly. I don't, again, it says it's instant. Okay, so you just haven't proven any of that. The real misunderstanding. Oh, fuck you. He is confusing impulse. Well, no, I'm not. With force itself. No, one's a net impulse, and one you could talk about continuous force. But I mean, technically everything is an impulse, and it's just whether the impulse is continuous. There's no difference. It's an applied force. It's a weight you're applying to something. That's it. That's the nature of all interactions, is you're hitting two things and they each have a weight, and you're just measuring the weights being exchanged. Short contact time, whatever that means, small impulse. I don't know. So he's just, that's my argument, you moron. Yeah. But instantaneous force can be large. I don't know. You just said it. Short contact time, small impulse. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Gravity does not need time. Well, again, it does, and it's just a fact. Okay. Materials and measuring devices do. So it's just not a fact that you instantaneously go 4.9 meters in gravity. In 1 second, you don't instantaneously go 4.9 meters. It takes time for you to go 4.9 meters. So just lie some more. Liar, 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 liar. All right, anyway. Also, Gary says there's no such thing as instantaneous acceleration. I don't even know how the word acceleration, which is change in velocity, you can't just change your velocity. You can't just go 5 miles an hour and then go 50 miles an hour. You know, theoretically, what can do that, except maybe a Newton's cradle is something like that, but it's still going to introduce the force in increments. All right, okay, so when you drop a ball from a height, does the ball first sit there in midair and then decides to accelerate towards the ground? LOL. No, it slowly accelerates. In the first microsecond, it moves a tiny, tiny amount, and then the next microsecond moves a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. So that's exactly what happens. It acquires the weight in chunks of time. Of course, when you drop and push any object, the object will instantly accelerate or change its velocity. Dumbass. I don't know what this even means. It won't instantly accelerate, whatever that means. There's no such thing as instantaneous motion. So it's on its face a retarded statement. And you're a retard. An obnoxious, shitty retard. An ugly, no doubt, smelly retard. Alright, so Robbie the lying fuck. Yeah, exactly. The no such thing as instantaneous acceleration. So again, I don't even know how they can think of the word acceleration without thinking about the word deceleration and the fact that nothing can instantaneously do this. Line is one of those moments where you can tell he's arguing with a dictionary. Well, I don't even open dictionaries, but whatever. Not physics. Objects don't hang there in midair waiting for gravity to warm up. They absolutely do. I mean, you can see a projectile shot into the air, and you could just watch it stop. Just stop and sit there in midair, and then it takes time for it to move through the atmosphere. It takes time for it to acquire its velocity. It's just an absolute time. It's an absolute fact. It takes time to acquire its velocity, and the velocity keeps increasing with each tiny unit of time it's allowed to free fall. Man, you people are just so dumb and dishonest. I mean, it's just amazing. All right, well, anyway, objects don't hang there waiting to warm up. The second you let go of a ball, it immediately, so this is bullshit, has a net force on it. So how could it possibly be true when it hasn't acquired its velocity yet? It can't have the force if it hasn't collected it yet, you moron. So that's an amazing statement, right? He's saying that it immediately already has acquired momentum. Immediately. Even though it's not going a velocity yet, it already has its momentum. It can't have the momentum till it's acquired it from the force. I mean, it's ridiculous to say something not moving, so when it stops, it's not moving, it has 150 pounds of momentum. No, it doesn't. And therefore, it immediately starts accelerating. So I don't even know what this means. It immediately starts accelerating, because clearly you can see it's not immediate, and it's happening in such tiny fractions of time in the beginning, and it takes like a good, you could say, 1/10 of a second for something to really start to be noticeable. That's literally what F equals ma means. Well, if that's what it means, you're really dumb and silly and stupider than I thought. I mean, I know you're dumb and stupid, but that's even That's the wackiest crap ever. To use the word immediately in physics is just saying absolutely nothing reasonable. There's no place, no delay. Oh, I mean, amazing. There's no pause, no delay. I mean, amazing. Bullshit. So it instantaneously goes 100 miles an hour. No, it doesn't, moron. No, gravity needs time to build weight. If that were true, scales wouldn't work. Again, a lie. There's no what the scales work, but they obviously do take time. I mean, if you use the slow motion camera, you will see the needle takes time. Springs wouldn't work. What a lie! I mean, this is just such straw man shit. And every drop lower experiment would be slow and weird hesitation before motion. So just lie. But they don't. So again, anybody film a pendulum? A pendulum swings and it stops. Anybody film it and see how long it stays what appears to be stopped? It's not going to be one frame of video. It's not going to be two. It's not going to be, it's going to be a few frames of the video where it appears like it's not moving. That's because the deceleration is happening over such tiny units of time, and the acceleration is happening over such tiny units of time. It's imperceptibly small amounts of motion, but it is moving. We just can't see it because acceleration is instantaneous. I mean, they keep saying it. So does anybody really in a physics conversation think the word instantaneous should be used anywhere? Is there any such purpose or use for that word? I mean, wouldn't it be best if all physicists were raised with the knowledge that the word doesn't exist? Because there is no way to describe anything that happens inside of an atom, inside a nuclear reactor, inside of anything that happens instantaneously. It doesn't. Nothing does that. The moment the net force becomes non-zero. So again, just amazing. Your full weight is not instantaneously acquired, is the simple argument. Because your weight is momentum. And if you don't have any velocity, you're not going to weigh anything. That's what turning the scale sideways and pushing things into it proves. All right. It's wild watching him reject acceleration because he doesn't like the units. So that's a lie. I don't like morons saying something silly like per second means second squared. That's just silly. Then reinvent physics around that personal hang-up. So there's no personal hang-up. So just fuck you. At some point it stops being a misunderstanding. Well, exactly. And that's where we are with you people. You're not just stupid. You're belligerently stupid. I mean, you're fanatically stupid. I mean, it's your life's purpose to be a lying scum. And that's what you're doing here. This is all lies to say you have any good reason to believe gravity isn't time dependent when it's obvious that it is. And becomes a whole alternative universe where basic definitions get rewritten on the fly. Basic definitions of what? Things that don't work, that aren't true. And the fact is, there is no 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast bullshit. All right, so that's the next subject. What a pile of shit. That's the only way to say it. Yep, that's all it is. So it's unfortunate. They type all this crap and pretend they're making an argument, but there's no links to anything. There's no proof of anything. There's no diagram of anything. There's just overt statements. And again, people have to just judge them for themselves when they say scales don't take time to read weight, when they obviously take time to read weight. All right, should be back. Okay, so this is the kinetic energy argument based on hitting things in space with bullets. All right, and so I have modified that experiment to make it elastic or inelastic, and the inelastic, the elastic case is even more nonsensical in space, frankly. But anyway, let's play with this first. So I got banned from the sub where this was posted. So that's a lie. So you didn't post this because you were already banned. You were banned for the idiotic, retarded, waste of my time comments you make. And I think you were the guy who brought up somehow the ice is crawling or something, for the thin ice argument. It's just idiotic. You're comparing it to a glacier moving. I mean, just idiotic nonsense. I mean, I shouldn't have to waste my time with something so irrelevant. All right, anyway, despite draft science denying it, that's just a lie. I said right in the video you're blocked when I read the comment. But honestly, that just makes it easier to say this without tiptoeing around things. So whatever you're tiptoeing, I mean, we already see your character, right? I don't waste my time on these posts buffooning you jackasses or doing any of this crap. I make a physics argument. Each post is a physics argument. Does it have your name in it and say, oh, these guys are saying silly shit? Is that what you want me to do, though? Do I really have to do that? So in each post, I will pre-describe how you're going to reply completely off the subject. I mean, what piles of bullshit. You people are just such hypocrites. All right, this decisive logical proof is just another draft science style misunderstanding. So all this is so unnecessary. Obviously, we have contempt for each other's understandings. I think you're an idiot, a moron, a goddamn fucking retard. You couldn't be a dumber, stone-dead, brain-dead piece of shit. So is that, no, can we finish with this crap? And you can say, oh, same to you. I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever. And be done with this crap every single post. You have to waste all this time saying you hate me. Well, I hate you, you fucking worm. You fucking coward. You can't make a video, can't draw a picture, can't even make an audio file because you're so fucking incompetent and incapable. No, you're a coward. That's why you can't. Jesus Christ, you piece of shit. Talking shit when you put up nothing. You fucking coward. Experiment is actually doing. You're not accelerating a single object to 5x the velocity with 5 identical pushes. So he says you're not. Well, obviously you are. I mean, you are giving it 5x the velocity. You can say there's a loss for each time it hits, that it's losing a tremendous amount of energy. Well, it has to lose the same amount, right? So you still have a linear proportion between the number of impacts and your velocity, and there will be no requirement for you to absorb 25 times the fuel. So by your own argument is defeated by the fact that, well, if you're going to say there's losses each time they hit, it loses 90% of the energy, doesn't get in. Well, then 90% for the next one, 90% for the next one, 90% for the next one. That doesn't change that your velocity changed linearly. It didn't change quadratically. So clearly, the only way you acquired the velocity, okay, was through the same energy applied 5 times. The same amount of force applied 5 times. So you don't have an argument here. All right, you're doing 5 completely separate inelastic collisions. So what? It doesn't matter. They'll produce exactly the result. You're conceding the result, which is going to get 1 unit of velocity and then 2 units of velocity and then 3 units of velocity. So you're already done. Because like I said, it doesn't matter what the waste is. The point is a certain precise amount of energy went in each time. And that precise amount increased the velocity by a full unit. So you're done doing quadratic math. Each one increasing the total mass and bleeding off a chunk of the bullet's kinetic energy. Right, and it would be the same chunk of its kinetic energy. It wouldn't be a different chunk. So you again, you're done because it's not going to be like the third bullet did something completely different. It won't do anything completely different as heat and deformation. So we know there's absolutely zero evidence of any heat or deformation, and we also know that if you're actually conserving the momentum, you can't use that dodge, right? So if you've conserved all of the momentum, you can't argue that there's 90% of the work is somewhere else. You can't say there's motion, linear motion going here, and there's linear motion going somewhere else. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument that you could use the same momentum twice. You can't. It can't be in 2 places at once, so to speak. It doesn't do singularities and it doesn't do superpositions. It doesn't do your little quantum wooey bullshit. So again, it's bullshit. I mean, you can measure the velocity and mass of the bullet and you can realize that it will be conserved in the motion of the object. So you don't really have any room to say you made a bunch of heat too. I with the same energy, I burned down 50,000 houses with the same match, so to speak. Now, you can't do that. Of course, the velocity increments look linear. Well, they're just absolutely factually linear, and it's an absolute fact that the momentum will be conserved. So again, you're just lying. I mean, has been tested. I mean, they've done this on the air carts or whatever. I mean, the momentum is conserved. The Velcro doesn't take anything hardly at all out of the experiment in terms of the momentum. So again, you have to explain how you conserved all of the linear motion, all of the momentum, and somehow lost a bunch to heat. So you heated things and knocked down the bowling pins. You can't do both things. You can't heat the bowling alley with the bowling ball and knock down the pins. You're adding the same momentum to the system that keeps getting heavier. So again, I made it clear that the masses are in such proportions that it can't matter. The bullet's a tiny mass. It's a 1,000th, 1/1000th of the mass. So you're not changing the mass in any significant way. So it's just a bullshit argument. That's not a refutation of kinetic energy. It's literally the textbook example of why inelastic collisions do not conserve kinetic energy. And the point is you're claiming that the energy is conserved. You're just saying it's somewhere else in deformation or heat. Well, show us that. Because then you've proven that you can make something hot without using something's momentum. That somehow momentum doesn't need to be used to make heat. So, so that's your magical theory. Okay, so go ahead, prove that. If you want to test the work needed to accelerate something to 5x the speed, you have to apply a force over a distance to a constant mass. Well, the mass is, the mass is so irrelevant. The tiny trivial change. It's like saying you weigh 150 pounds and 2 ounces and then saying 150 pounds and 3 ounces. Doesn't make any difference. So what you're doing instead is liar, liar, liar. Changing the mass with every step. So we know I was clear in the post to make clear that the masses are gigantic. It can't be changed. Destroying energy on impact. So no evidence of any destroyed energy. And even if it was 1 or 2%, who cares? And the fact is, even if it was 99%, even if 99% of the energy was destroyed on impact, you still have the fact that the 1% with each impact doubled the velocity. Each impact increased the velocity 1 full unit. Not 1.4, not 1.7, a full 1 unit. Not 0.4, not 0.7. Okay, and then claiming the missing energy disproves the energy equation. I'm saying the fact is it's disproven by the fact that you have no evidence that 90% of the energy didn't get into the object. You have no evidence that you can make heat and keep your momentum. So none of this is coherent to actual physics, and you certainly have nothing. You have no experimental evidence demonstrating that this scalar heat is somewhere. Where is the scalar heat? You won't prove its existence. So it's all just a big fucking lie. All right, it's like throwing bricks at a car, watching the dents absorb half the energy. Obviously, the dents don't absorb any of the energy. So it's just not a fact. The dents are just evidence of you converting the energy into heat. But now the energy is heat. It isn't a dent. The energy is still moving through the car, still radiating into the universe. The energy is still moving, so you don't get it. You can't use the energy. There's no such thing as I used up all the energy. It never happens ever, ever, ever in the universe. The energy is never used up and now is dead. There's no such thing as dead energy. It is immortal. And then declaring the energies don't work. So just a silly analogy and just a big fat lie. Let's see. The whole argument collapses the moment you stop treating momentum delivered by bullets as the same thing as work done on a rigid body. So we know there was no work done. So we know that's an absolute truth in the sense that nothing more than the momentum. So in every single ballistic pendulum experiment ever conducted, they've never been able to collect any of the kinetic energy above the momentum. So just imagine what they're claiming. They're claiming there's a whole bunch of energy to be captured, And yet they're saying there's some rule that's preventing them from ever capturing anything more than the momentum. So even though they have 1 million joules, but because the momentum is only 1,000, that's all they're going to collect. And it happens every single time. They never collect any of the kinetic energy above the momentum. Ever. In the history of mankind. Ever. And he's an arrogant asshole arguing for this shit. All right, anyway. They're not the same process, and they don't produce the same energy outcome. So it's just baby talk. But hey, pointing out is how I got banned from the first place. So here we are. Well, again, this is an example of how you don't provide any evidence, just make a whole bunch of assertions, just waste everybody's time because you did nothing rational here. You made assertions that aren't true. Dents use up energy. Dents don't use up energy. They don't stop the energy. They don't complete the energy. They don't do anything, okay? They're just an example of a conversion process where you converted the energy from being some motion and contact, and then you showed how it moved other things, and then those other things eventually stopped moving because they gave all their energy to the surfaces. Just like the bowling pins eventually give away their energy, right? They don't use it up. They bang into something and deposit their energy into the environment. So they make a ton of noise, and they dent the wooden sides, and they do all kinds of stuff. But they transfer all of their energy, and then their energy is in the vibrations of the whole bowling alley is vibrating. You can hear, outside the bowling alley, you can hear the bowling, That's the energy still moving. And it's evidence that the energy never dies. It never stops. It always has to be accounted for, and you can't make it be in two places at once. It can't be making heat and be making linear motion. Can't do both things. You piece of shit. All right, so I think that's all there is for now. Those two idiotic posts and such. It says 2 comments. Did we see the 2 comments? Yeah, I guess I read those. All right, though we don't have anything new. 7 is the old number there. Okay, so we're all done there. And we'll just make a quick check here and see if there's anything new. So this newest post is really another great example. So this one, you really can't make up any deformation arguments. Okay, and so yeah, let's briefly go over it. So another best done from in space experiment. Now the truth is, this one can be done on an air track. So I should have pointed that out, that this is a real experiment. Let's ask Valerie Rousseau. Let's all beg Valerie Rousseau to do this experiment. Because it's just so simple. Consider a spring in space with a 1 mass at one end and a 4 mass at the other. So we're just going to take a spring, we're going to stretch it, and then we're going to watch it oscillate. Okay, and the simple fact is that, yeah, I put 2 1 masses on the spring, or I put 1 mass and a 4 mass, or I can have 2 4 masses. And each one is going to oscillate at a different speed, but of course the masses are going to be moving with momentum. And that's a fact. So with a mass and a velocity. And their argument is because of this velocity thing. Oh, I wrote it backwards. What a stupid mistake. Shit. Yeah, I got to change that. 8K should be at the top and 2K should be at the bottom. So that was a stupid mistake. All right, I have to edit that. Oh, that's just terrible. Sorry for anyone who noticed. Yeah, that's a big boo-boo. All right. So anyway, this is the experiment. And the fact is that with the light ones, it's going to be oscillating with 8 units of kinetic energy. So for the same exact spring force, is going to be creating all of these different amounts of kinetic energy. So in the heaviest circumstances, it's only 2 kinetic energies. Then it's, when you do a 4 and a 1, it's 5. And then there's only 2 with 2 heavy objects. And how can I have all of this different amount of energy being produced by exactly the same force in? So the same exact force is put in, the same work is done on the spring, and yet now the spring's producing a whole bunch of different outcomes of work. And there's no way to describe this and say, here's where it's missing. right? Because the irony is that the light spring, the one with the most kinetic energy, is the one that's moving the fastest, so it's probably going to get the hottest. It's going to lose the most energy to heat, where the slow-moving spring is going to lose the least, and it's the thing that has lost the most energy. So it doesn't make much sense that the thing losing the least energy to heat is somehow the one that's lost the most kinetic energy. So it really is impossible for them to come up with some explanation for where is the missing energy. If we say that the system can create a total of 8 in the best circumstance, how do we lose 6 in the worst circumstance? And there's no way to explain that. All right, well, I'll get on to drawing a new drawing. That was really just whoops and such. So anyway, till the next time. All right, it should be the next time. Yeah, it should be later anyway. So, yeah, so this is the new drawing, so I did fix it. Yeah, there's, you know, so far I can't think of any way, you know, I mean, as I did go over in the other video, you know, you could play a game about, you know, hitting something, you know, and the idea that somehow you're losing energy when the interaction takes place. So if I have an elastic interaction, you're going to pretend that no matter what elastic device I use for sticking, Velcro or clay or whatever, that somehow I'm going to lose a tremendous amount of the energy. Now, I'd argue that you can't conserve the momentum and lose, that is, create heat or deformation. So you can't do both things. The energy can't go in both directions. You can't lose it to a bunch of heat and it's going this way and then keep it as linear motion. That people should be able to understand that. But they use this as a catch. So that was a tiny flaw in the experiment. So then I changed it to elastic and then just create a machine around it, you know, to collect all the free energy being created by the object bouncing back and forth elastically between the two heavy objects. So essentially I'm taking that pendulum argument, you know, with the 3 mass and the 3 mass, and just saying, well, let's put the pendulum in between the two and let it bounce back and forth, because, you know, it's going to keep transferring the energy. Now, in the ideal case, if I use not a 3 mass but a 30 mass, then I'll be getting all my energy back. So every time it hits, it bounces back, and then it hits with a full energy in the opposite direction and gives 200%. So it's going to give 200% that way, and then 200% that way, and then 200% that way, and 200% that way. And it's going to keep doing that until the two objects get too far away from each other for it to transfer anymore. But it's a huge amount of momentum being created. And then all I have to do is put a, you know, a fence, you know, on a spring to just catch all of that momentum that's going this way and that way. The opposing momentum, I can catch that in a spring. And so I can collect all of that energy, momentum that I produced. So all that extra momentum is easily collected. And obviously it'd be a substantial amount of energy for me to restart the experiment 100 times. So with the energy I collected, I could redo the experiment 100 times. So it would be perpetual motion, be free energy. So both of these are very good arguments. But this one, yeah, there's just no way to explain why. You know, how can you say the same force produces different amounts of energy, and there's no explanation for why they're different? Like how one of them lost energy. Like how did you destroy the force in the spring? If the force has a maximum capacity to produce 8 kinetic energy worth, how do I make it not work? And because the lighter, the heavier the objects, the slower they're moving, so there can't be heat as an explanation because they're going to be less hot. So what are they going to use as an explanation for where all the missing kinetic energy is? You can't use the words heat and deformation anymore. And, you know, as one would expect, I suppose, they made no comment today. So there's no comment responding to this challenge posted as of yet. Okay, so nothing on their crank board, and obviously nothing on my challenge. So no response yet. So that's all you can say. So far, nothing. So I'll leave it up another day. I won't post a new response today, and we'll just see if somebody can provide some sort of argument. Because so far, none. So the weird thing is the guy who posts this stuff can't edit, once he posts, which is weird. So he had to repost the whole post, to change the image. So that is kind of funny. So the post says 6 hours ago, but it's really like 12 hours ago. So it's been up all day, and there's been no response as of yet. So, apparently they are incapable of making a response and such. So, and then the Blue Moonshine guy, of course, he hasn't done the 4 rubber band air track experiment he claimed he was going to do a month ago. So, and, this is a thing where, obviously if he did this experiment and proved the case, then it would be a substantial piece of evidence against me. So instead of doing that, he's doing these buffoon videos and nonsense videos. And here he has the opportunity to create this hard piece of evidence, and instead he's doing this nonsense shit. And so you got to ask the question, why doesn't he get to the real experiment instead of doing junk experiments? And frankly, there's no good excuse for that. Yeah, none at all. Except, he doesn't have the stuff to do it right and to defend his claims and such. All right, so I guess we don't particularly need that. I'll get rid of that. So I guess maybe what I will do is, just since I'm here and I've got a live room, I might as well do this Blitz guy. I might as well find a video of his. I did email him and offer him, the opportunity to give me a price for, doing a debunking of me. He doesn't have much of a channel, frankly, compared to mine. I mean, he has, more subscribers, and some of his videos get a little bit more views, but it isn't that good. We're talking about in the hundreds, most of the videos. So, but maybe it'd be good for him as well as for this channel to create some interest in terms of having a debate or a video exchange of some kind. So we'll see if we can antagonize him into treating me like a flat earther and giving me the opportunity to be appropriately debunked by a brilliant physicist, a doctor, with a doctorate in physics. And, we'll see if he can make any of these arguments. So, let me go through this and see if I can find something interesting. Let me just make sure there's no audio problem or something. Did nobody notice the error you made? Yeah, nobody that I know of. Nobody mentioned the error, in the drawing. So, but no one comments. I'm just saying, why isn't any, Reddit does have people, and it's probably gotten 150 views. Who knows, right? I think it gets about 150 a day, maybe. Maybe 100. I don't know. But you think of all those people that viewed it, the fact that no one comments except these trolls. No one else will show up. Not a single other person has shown up in like 2 weeks. There's no new person who ever gets into these conversations on these subjects, and that seems a little bit surprising that there's nobody with the courage to make a comment. Reddit seems like a place where people, it's easier to comment than on, like YouTube. There's a small percentage of people that make videos compared to the commenters, but on Reddit you would think the amount of visitors, most of them are, you would argue that some higher percentage actually makes comments. All right, so let me see what I can find here. Let's see. Review long freeze. I don't know what that is. Not Terra doesn't ask. The Ask a Physicist, who knows? Those are all random subjects, so who the knows what he's talking about? But they're usually this, kind of obtuse physics. Big Bang shit. let's see, black hole shit. Einstein invented a fridge. Well, who says? Whatever that even means. Newton was wrong about space. So we just did that one. That's the bucket experiment. I did that one. So there's a video on the channel debunking that. Distant galaxies, who cares? Problem of time, you know, that's just going to be more Einstein crap. Straight lines explained. I mean, well, I don't even know why somebody should have to explain straight lines. They're like the most elemental thing you could have in the universe. You know, and I guess the argument is how can you explain them in Einstein's crookedy space? String theory, who cares? Candace Owen, who cares? Laws are not fundamental. So there we go. That might be. This has nutter in it. So I would argue that conservation is. These are reasonable laws. So yeah, let's do that one.
Do you know Hobby Lobby has hundreds of incredible products on sale?
Either I don't want to know about it. Don't want to even think about something called a Hobby Lobby.
Like conservation of energy and conservation of momentum are not laws. At least they haven't been for 106 years.
Okay, so 106 years. So there's basically pointing out that we broke physics entirely, turned it into rubbish 106 years ago. Okay, so that's when Einstein ruined physics. But we know it was already ruined by Leibniz, you know, in 1682 or whatever the fuck it was. That's when physics was ruined. And it wasn't ruined exactly then because nobody believed Leibniz. So it wasn't until 1730 that everything went to hell. And people became Leibnizians and pretended that Newton was a Leibnizian, which is just plain disgusting, frankly. But anyway, I mean, to put that shit in Newton's mouth is disgusting. So it'd be interesting to hear what the doctorate in physics says. You know, when you quote Newton's sentence under the second law, and he says twice the force, twice the motion, 3 times the force, 3 times the motion. How the fuck do you turn that into mv squared? An endorsement of mv squared. I mean, it's obviously not an endorsement.
Well, most of them. Hold on, I'll explain.
Yeah, so there's only one conservation in the sense that there's only one form of stuff in the universe, and that's motion. So you could just argue that Descartes was basically the first one who said it forcefully as a proposition. Now, people said it 1,000 years ago that they had a sense. It's just like evolution, right? I mean, Darwin's grandfather was an evolutionist. He believed in evolution, and he hadn't read Darwin's book yet. You know, so he didn't need to compile a whole bunch of evidence. He could see it in the environment itself that, yeah, he looked at a monkey and said, well, yeah, we look like we're half monkey. And he looked at the world and saw that, well, it must be pretty fucking old. And so, you know, he drew these conclusions and had belief in evolution. So it makes it kind of funny, okay, that Darwin was so apprehensive to jump to the conclusion you know, when frankly, like I said, his own grandfather, you know, anticipated the observation would be proven. Anyway, so those are just interesting little facts, I think. So what is it relevant to this? Yeah, I'm not sure. So let's just play this.
So the law of conservation of...
The volume's very hard for me to control here, so I don't know what I can do with that and such. Yeah, so we'll just hope for the best, I guess.
Matter is not a law of physics, and in fact, it gets violated every day. Every time a particle undergoes radioactive decay, matter is not conserved.
Okay, so I would argue that's just idiotic. So, you know, to think the only matter is electrons and protons, and frankly, you can't destroy either one, and you can't convert them into gravitational waves, and you can't convert them into bent space. So I think it's just, I think it's just fake physics, really, to argue that you have any real evidence that you've ever destroyed an electron or destroyed a proton. I think that's just bullshit, that there's any good evidence that you've ever done that.
But a more accurate version of this law is what is often called the first law of thermodynamics.
Right, so the thermodynamic one goes back to Descartes. What I was saying is this idea that you could just understand it all as heat. It's just a thermodynamic idea of motion. And you can have little tiny things moving, or you can have big giant things moving, but it's all motion, and it all is currency. And you can just transfer the currency to pennies, or you can transfer the currency to dollar bills, or you can transfer it to $10,000 bills. It doesn't matter. It's all just a currency, and there's only so many pennies worth in the universe. And that's a perfectly reasonable, I'd say fantastically brilliant observation for 1630. I mean, Descartes was, doing you all a favor, and you spit on the favor.
That energy is conserved. And when it was first conceptualized, it definitely would have been accurately called a law, an empirically observed behavior of some measured quantity. But ever since Emmy Noether published...
so this Noether crap is just such crap. She didn't publish any proof of anything. There's no concept at all here. I don't even know why they're glorifying this nonsense about symmetry, and somehow how Noether's theory proves you don't conserve, because of course you do.
Published her eponymous theorem in 1918, the way we view conservation laws changed forever. She proved mathematically that...
Bullshit, she did, but whatever. I mean, a mathematical proof, again, written out of the existing laws that are wrong. Like, if you're going to write a mathematical proof out of MGH, when it's the wrong formula, it's MGT, and then you're going to use work equals force times distance, when no, it's really force times time, and when you're going to use 1/2 mv squared to define energy, when it's not, sorry, it's just mv. So, yeah, if you're going to write a formula full of bad formulas, then your formula is going to be a piece of shit. And that's what it is, a piece of shit.
For any physical system governed by equations that remain unchanged under a given smoothly varying transformation...
I mean, this is, unfortunately, he's showing something that's written in whatever, German or French or something. It's just whatever.
Then that system has an associated conservation law. Let me give an example. Suppose that you're trying to understand the path of a bullet fired from a gun. Certainly, the dynamics of the bullet don't really care whether you...
how could it possibly make any goddamn difference? And how could this be anything about conservation? So let me just shoot it in space and get this whole silly argument over with. And what I will do is basically have to conserve all of the energy, because I can't dissipate it as anything else, except motion and heat.
Fire it at the beach in Alaska or at the beach in Mexico. In fact, moving around the gun horizontally won't affect the dynamics of the bullet at all. And this horizontal displacement is an example of a continuously...
I don't even know what he's talking about in terms of you aren't changing it no matter how you horizontally change the orientation of the bullet. Obviously, it's going to hit the earth depending on how you've horizontally aimed the gun. So that doesn't make sense.
Varying transformation. You can move the firearm as much or as little as you want horizontally, and the dynamics don't change. This is called horizontal translation symmetry. And Noether's theorem then...
So this is pretty idiotic. So he's just basically saying the gun performs the same way wherever I go on Earth, because it's the same gravity everywhere I go on Earth. So what? I mean, if I could theoretically go somewhere where the gravity wasn't 9.8 meters per second, but 9.7 or 9.6, then it will be different.
Implies that momentum in the horizontal direction is conserved, which is true.
So there was nothing you didn't need to conserve anything because you didn't use that force at all in the experiment, so it's irrelevant. There was no force interaction that was part of the experiment. So if you actually were moving while you shot the gun, it would matter. So this is so silly. I mean, it's not even worth having a conversation about some argument that's silly.
On the other hand, if you raise or lower the firearm, the gravitational potential energy of the firearm changes.
Okay, so this is idiotic, frankly. I mean, you can't change its potential energy, so we're just now preposterously lying, okay, that somehow it's going to change at all because the amount of gravity change is so slight, can't possibly matter. So that's just made up shit.
So it would not be correct to say that the dynamics of the bullet are unchanged based on the height of the firearm. There is no vertical translation symmetry, and there's no momentum conservation in the vertical direction.
All right, so it's just a lie that there's no conservation, so that doesn't even make any sense again. The bullet's still going to fall 9.8 meters per second unless you go a really long distance vertically. So, bullshit.
And that's exactly what we see. The bullet's vertical speed, and hence momentum, increases with time.
Alright, so now he's saying it increases with time in one direction, going down. We're not talking about it. So it's just, he's pretending that somehow the gravitational impact on the bullet has something to do with the actual energy of the gun. And it has nothing to do with it. So again, the bullet's going to leave the gun with exactly the same speed as it left the gun in both cases. So it has nothing to do with the actual energy the bullet has. This is just a lie. Obviously, the boat on a side of a stream does not have any potential energy. It doesn't have any energy. You haven't changed it in any way. If I move the boat all the way inland, 500 miles, I don't have a boat with a different amount of fucking potential energy. You need to be in the stream to be able to get energy from the force. You can't collect energy from the force when you're not in the stream.
The way this works is that many physical systems are describable in terms of a mathematical function called an action.
Yeah, fuck you. So again, this is all this fucking lowest amount of action theory kind of shit that doesn't have anything to do with reality.
Essentially, the function takes as input the path of the system through spacetime.
So nothing's doing any of this. So where does the gun and the bullet do any of these shitty wavy line bullshit? There's no fucking such function for the bullet. The bullet isn't going to encounter any of this bullshit.
And it outputs a number.
I mean, really, if I'm out in space and I do this experiment, it's not going to make any difference to the velocity of the bullet where I go in space. It's still going to be exactly the same velocity for the bullet.
And in simple systems, it's built from the kinetic energy minus the potential.
There you go. So the kinetic energy lie, the big fat mv squared pile of turd. And there's no such thing as this potential energy when you haven't stored the energy in a device that stores energy. And there's no, gravity isn't a storage device. So, but you know, a boat isn't a storage device. You can't store the energy in the boat. The energy can only be in the function of gravity. You have to be in the gravity to collect the gravity. You have to be able to free fall and collect the gravity. If you're stuck to a surface, the surface will absorb the force.
Energy. And to find the equation of motion for the system, you need to look for the path that produces the smallest output. This is called the principle of least action.
Right, the pile of crap, silly nonsense that doesn't really happen anywhere as a fact. Theory.
What Noether showed was that if the form of the action didn't change under some transformation, then there is an associated conservation law. If there is not a transformation that leaves the action intact, there is no conservation law.
So we know the conservation law is just a conceptual understanding that, you know, you have so much energy in a system, and you're just going to explain, I either have a system like a thermos where everything is trapped and it can't get out, so I can know the whatever I have in there, it's a set amount that I've trapped in there. And then I have a conservation of the BBs, or a conservation of the ducks, or a conservation of whatever. I could say warm things. I could have little warm things that have a temperature, and I have to conserve the temperature. I can't pretend that I can just reduce the temperature without it leaking out somewhere and going somewhere and doing something. So there's no such idea that I can destroy or create temperature. I mean, that's the conservation law. It's not an abstract mathematical idea. It's a axiom by which you frame your physics understanding. And unless you have a reason to believe you can destroy matter, or you have a reason to believe you can destroy energy, why would you assume you can when every experiment demonstrates that you can always follow where the energy is? Every single experiment shows conservation of momentum.
The example I gave before is translation. If shifting your whole system up or down doesn't change the action, then your action...
What's up and down? I mean, again, this is more baby talk. Yes, in gravity, you're going to change the gravitational position of something. Just means you're giving it more opportunity to free fall before it hits the ground. But that's all you're doing. You're not changing anything. substantially until you move miles. And then, yes, you'll change how much gravity there is, how much force it collects per meter. But so what? I mean, per unit of time. But so what?
Conserves vertical momentum. Alternatively, if the action doesn't change with time, then energy is conserved. So the reason why I said conservation laws aren't laws anymore is because they're derived and hence no longer empirical.
All right, says you. So again, that's just the whole problem with your whole fucking theory and derived from garbage axiom. So you put in the shitty axiom of 1/2 mv squared and said that's a real thing in the universe, when the fact is there's no good evidence of it whatsoever. So, Dr. Physicist, can you produce a video showing 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast? I mean, it happens every fucking day by your own theory. So why don't you show me the evidence that it happens?
We can predict when energy will be conserved in a system without observing the system beforehand.
Whatever. It's just too silly. Okay, so I'm just saying, as a concept, it just, you know, you have to do some thinking on your own here. You can't sit there and rely on, formalizing this rule. I mean, I don't even know how you could formalize the rule besides just saying MV in has to equal MV out. There, that's the energy conservation rule. You can never destroy the MV. You've always got to have, more mass moving slower or less mass moving faster, but you can never get rid of that quantity in the universe. That quantity never can change.
And just as an aside, the action for our whole universe appears to vary with time, meaning energy isn't
So whatever, says you, it doesn't appear. You just said it appears and it doesn't really, because you're not going to show me anything real. You're just going to tell me of an abstract concept of one of your nerdy friends. You're not going to show me anything hard evidence of this crap.
conserved. Chew on that.
Chew on what? There's nothing to chew on. I have no idea what this song is. I have no idea what he's yelling. It's just so... what the fuck? You could just play sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, do 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 do, and something together, la 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 la. No, we're just so cool and full of ourselves that we have to yell this shit at people. No, I'm sorry. Oh, God.
An empirically observed behavior of some measured...
So he does this blooper thing after every video. Jesus Christ.
Come on. Blah. Continue.
And he does the same thing every time. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. When I make a mistake, I just say, oh, fuck that. And I turn the damn computer off. And say, I'll do it over again some other day. But anyway. Ew, that was hideously horrible. The whole Nutters thing is just so... It's such a pile of shit. I mean, such an over-exaggerated, hyperbolic piece of crap that there's some real fucking meaning to it. There's nothing there. Alright, Newton was wrong about space. Let's see, clock thing again, some other kind of crap. Physical time, beginning universe. Oh, fuck that. String theory. Oh, fuck that. Really, until it's really, really dead. Let's see. Conservation laws are not fundamental. There we go. Entangled mass. We won't bother with entanglement. That's just too ridiculous. Lied about quantum fluctuations. Who could care less? Atomic clocks were invented. I suppose there were calculations where you needed a clock that could do billionths of a second, I suppose. The Big Bang had no singularity. Who cares? Black holes, exploding stars. Who cares? Let's see. Flat Earth maps. Who cares? Fusion is sort of an interesting subject, so maybe we'll do that. I would argue there's no such thing, that the sun is not making helium as the thing that's making energy. Making helium does not make energy. And what the sun is actually making is neutrons. That's the real power thing, okay? And it's breaking them. so the sun's making and breaking all the time. So it's just trying to It's just got a whole bunch of stuff under high pressure, and 1 minute the heat, the hotness breaks an atom, and the next minute the hotness makes an atom, and that's what it's busy doing. But it's not itself burning anything. There's no fuel for the sun except the heavy elements. Frankly, it needs the heavy elements to break if it was to do some kind of useful fusion reaction. But a fission reaction, I'd say, is illogical on its face, because it basically requires you to make more dense objects. Yeah, I think that's a decent enough explanation. So the sun is hot because of gravity. It's not hot because of it's fusing things. That's not why it's hot. It's hot because it's gigantic, and the gravity is creating an intense pressure, and heat is the byproduct. Yeah, I mean, the core of the Earth is 5,000 degrees centigrade, and the reason why that high temperature can't get to us is because there's not a bunch of hydrogen between us and that hot core. There's some really thick, heavy metals that have to be heated by that core. So the heat doesn't get to us, because it's got to slowly increase the temperature of all that material that's between us and that core. But the sun's core, there's no heat shield in the sun. So the heat of the core leaks right out to the surface. All right, so yeah, we'll do this fusion thing.
Mom, we need your help.
What happened?
Always something.
You want infinite energy. The laws of physics say that's not possible.
Right. So it really isn't possible. But the fact is that, in a sense, there's an unimaginable amount of energy trapped in nucleuses. So if we could do the fusion thing without making a mess of it, there's a huge amount of energy to be grabbed from breaking atoms. Making atoms, that's work.
But we can get pretty close using nuclear fusion.
Says you.
The problem is, it's really hard to control. And yet, we try. Before I explain how we try nuclear fusion, I should explain why we want it.
But the idea is like I said, yes. I mean, the only reason why it's believed in is because you have this idea that you can create all this insane amount of energy because of this mv squared stuff. So if you did find out that the mv squared stuff isn't real energy, then all of a sudden this fusion thing isn't going to make any sense. So that's sort of one of the ironies in the backstory here, is they've insanely exaggerated the energy of these neutrons and other things that are flying out of something. They have this huge amount of joules they're saying this thing has. But just like the ballistic pendulum, they can't collect it. That fake energy of those neutrons is just as uncollectible as the speed of the bullet into the ballistic pendulum. You won't be able to collect the KE energy. You're just going to collect the momentum energy. And the momentum energy of the neutrons is 1,000,000 times less, billion times less than their KE prediction. So you can sort of understand why, I might argue that fusion ain't going to ever be the answer, because they've exaggerated how much energy they can pull out of the system because of this silly kinetic energy formula that's made them think there's 1 billion of something when there's only 1,000 of something.
It turns out that because of Einstein's mass energy equivalence, if you show...
So there's no mass energy equivalence. Mass just takes up space. So as I've pointed out, the Earth is like a balloon. I mean, the universe is like a balloon full of air. So it's got compression. It's got air pressure. And the fact is, if I put something, a tennis ball inside the balloon, it displaces the air. Okay, and so now the air pressure has to increase because I've displaced it. So matter displaces energy. It displaces, photons can't be inside the matter. So energy can't be inside of the electrons and protons. So anytime there's one in the space, it's reducing the amount of space the photons are in, and therefore increasing their pressure because they're in less space.
Rub two hydrogen-like atoms together hard enough, they combine to form a helium atom, a neutron, and tons of energy left over.
Yeah, so says you. So that would be the argument. That's a big says you. So they're taking a hydrogen, which is a broken neutron. So it's a neutron that isn't collapsed. So it's not been pressurized. So it isn't. The electron and proton aren't close together. So the energy is very low in the hydrogen atom, and the energy is very high in the neutron. And so that's the big difference here. The neutron has energy when it escapes. So yes, you can create energy out of neutrons separating. But they're not the big one. I mean, the big one is breaking the deuteron, which is the neutron plus the electron. So it's two protons with an electron in between. That's the thing that you really can make hay with, because you can create high energy protons.
And we can take that energy and convert it into electricity. This process is super efficient, and the only fuel it requires...
So we know that there's no process, there's no process of this efficiency, too, is kind of bullshit. We know that you have to heat a bunch of water, and you know that you have those big giant evaporating tanks at the nuclear power plant that are putting a bunch of heat into the atmosphere. So yes, you might have efficiency in some respect, but the fact is you're heating the atmosphere, which is the whole global warming thing. So even though it's not chemical smoke, it's heat. All right, and the heat coming out of smokestacks is the real problem. The chemistry is bad, don't get me wrong, okay? I mean, the soot and shit that comes out of a, burning coal, that's bad. But the heat coming out is the thing that's causing the global warming, because the heat is picking up moisture off the surface of the ocean and putting moisture in the atmosphere. And water is the big, huge, giant greenhouse gas. Water vapor is an insanely powerful greenhouse gas. That's what's changed from when the dinosaurs existed to now, is the fact that the humidity was always 70% or 80% back in the Jurassic. And, it's much lower now because of the temperature change. But it was the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere that made it so warm. That's why dragonflies were huge, is because the air was heavy. So it was almost like swimming through the atmosphere. You could literally swim through it. It was so thick.
Like hydrogen. But guess what? We have plenty of that. After all, water is made of hydrogen and oxygen. The trouble is, it takes a lot of pressure to keep hydrogen.
So this isn't real hydrogen. So this is always the big lie, right? So first off, the hydrogen is hydrogen 2. So it's not just an electron and a proton. It's actually an electron and proton, electron and proton. So it's, it's a very stable, solid object, a hydrogen 2. So it's almost like saying two neutrons. So it's like taking a neutron, two magnets, north-south and then a south-north, and they're stuck together, and it's a very stable object.
Fusing, and we haven't cracked the code on sustained fusion yet. But one of the best guesses for how we might do that is with a machine called a tokamak. The goal of a tokamak is to convert the hydrogen to plasma and then contain it while it's heated up to hundreds of millions of degrees.
Right, and what you're going to do is collect neutrons, which are going to be making all kinds of a mess. So regardless of this fact that you're saying you don't want the radioactive waste, you're going to be creating radiations, and they're very dangerous radiations, and they're very caustic to whatever you're making your tokamak at. So this whole thing is going to get degraded and ruined pretty quickly. So yes, it's, even if they could get the damn thing to actually make energy, they're a long way from figuring out how to create this thing so they can economically maintain this piece of shit. Because if they maintained a plasma for more than an hour or something, they'd have to change the plates inside of the thing every 15 minutes or whatever the fuck it is. I mean, they have no evidence. They have no materials that ideally can collect this heat.
By keeping it contained and increasing the pressure rises, with the idea being that if you get it hot enough, it'll start fusing. The question is, how do you confine it? Magnetic fields, of course. So there are 3 magnetic fields involved in a tokamak. The first is the main magnetic field, which gets its shape from the donut-like shape of the reactor. This is the toroidal magnetic field, and it runs in a circle through the meat of the donut. This way, moving charged particles will move along in a circle rather than just moving in straight lines. The next magnetic field is actually an induced magnetic.
And they can't make these good enough to actually contain all of the beam. So this is the problem. They have a whole bunch of spattering pieces that fly off that just bore holes in their device.
Magnetic field. By pulsing a large magnet inside the donut hole, the plasma starts to pick up a current that flows around the donut. And as current flow induces a magnetic field, the plasma itself creates a magnetic field that guides itself. The magnetic field loops around the plasma. This magnetic field, combined with the toroidal magnetic field, creates a helical magnetic field, causing the plasma to spiral as it goes around the donut. As an aside, this magnet is also what heats the plasma up initially. Higher current flow means higher temperature. Now, the reason why they want the spiral is because the changing strength of the toroidal field from outside to inside would inevitably cause a drift of the plasma to the outside of the donut, eventually causing it to hit the edge. So by spiraling the plasma, it continually drifts in, then out, mitigating this issue. The final magnetic...
Yeah, probably causing some other issue, because now you have stuff spiraling, and it's a lot harder to control because it's never in the same position. But whatever.
Magnetic field is an external vertical magnetic field. This magnetic field is just used to place the plasma ring inside the whole machine appropriately. Now, once you're ready to go, you heat up your plasma and off you go. To go past the upper limit temperature from the central magnet, microwaves bombard the plasma from the outside, increasing the temperature even more. And if you designed your tokamak well, you can heat it up so much and confine it so tightly within the magnetic fields that it ignites, keeping itself hot while undergoing fusion. We're not there yet, of course, but ITER will be returning on soon, and if we're lucky, we'll see ignition.
Ah, yeah, sure. Whatever. Okay, that's it. Yuck. Anyway, so, I mean, there's lots of theory to be argued there, but, just the idea that he showed the MV squared formula, and, the fact is, well, that was the Nutter video, but anyway, the fact is that's what it's based on, is they have this idea that a proton moving a certain speed, some speed of light, has this insane amount of energy. It's, able to be collected. And again, we can't collect the energy of a bullet. So they want to collect the energy of speeding electrons and protons and neutrons, and we can't collect the energy of a bullet. With all of our technology, there's no mechanism to convert the bullet into energy, kinetic energy. We can't convert its kinetic energy into electricity that equals the kinetic energy of the bullet. We can't find a mechanism that allows us to collect the energy. So that's the irony here. They want to collect the energy from speeding protons, electrons, and neutrons, and they don't have the technology to collect the energy of a bullet. So it's just a joke. A silly, bad joke on science. That's what physics is. It's a bad science joke. All right, forces aren't fundamental. That ought to be worth a laugh. Maybe I'll open it in a new tab so I don't have to re-scroll. Can you see this? Yes, you can. I gotta wait for the commercial. Morons at a hockey game or something.
Forces aren't fundamental. The electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force.
These are all non-existent forces. So we know that motion is the only force, okay? So we know the little bits moving the speed of light. That stuff is essentially converted into the motion of big objects. So all big objects have in them, trapped in them, some of this speed of light crap that's basically given them motion and caused their protons, electrons, and neutrons to move. Just really protons and electrons, as you no doubt have heard me say, are the only real things. Alright, good. There's nobody saying anything. Oh, good enough. I will continue. Where the hell was I? Yeah, here I was.
They're not just forces, they're interactions.
So, blah, 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 blah. So there's only one interaction, theoretically, and that is the force, in the form of this little discrete bits of shit, hits electrons and protons and moves them. So the only thing really happening is electrons and protons are the little dead pieces of matter, and the force from all directions and all kinds of places, and the force between them decides how they move. So they just get bombarded by force, and they move wherever the force has a bias. If it pushes more this way, it moves that way. If it pushes more that way, it moves that way. It's really that simple.
According to our most accurate models of the universe,
It's shit models. I mean, they don't have any model. It's like the standard model. They can't draw you a picture of an atom now, because where are you going to put all these stupid things? These taus and these muons and the antimatter. Where is all this crap? There's no fucking image they could draw. They can't model any of this shit. Where's your model? Is this your model? This loop-de-doo wavy crapiolia? Is that the standard model in action? What is that? A picture of? A model of? It's just bullshit. They have no model.
dynamics of the microscopic world are defined not by pushes and pulls, but by...
No, it's just pushes, because there's no such thing as a pull. There's no concept of pull elemental. So he's saying forces aren't fundamental. Pull is not fundamental. There's no way to fundamentally pull on something. But you can crash into something. And crashing into something is fundamentally a push. So yes, you can fundamentally push, but you can't fundamentally pull.
different
Fun physics fact.
fields interacting with each other by overlapping.
Bullshit, whatever, overlapping fields. I mean, it's just such a pile of crap. Singularities.
And this isn't just a semantic point. To use the word force implies just that quantum field theory is just the quantum theory of pushes and pulls.
So, again, fake notions of pull, and it'd be fine if that's all they were saying, is that we're just going to duplicate what Maxwell drew in terms of these two phenomena, of electrons repelling each other and protons and electrons attracting. But that's not what they're doing.
But it's so much more than that.
See, that's the part where they're saying it's so much more than that. It's not any more than that. That's all there is. There's just charge. Atoms are controlled by charge, and everything that pops out of them is a consequence of the fact that electrons repel, protons repel each other, and electrons and protons attract. That's it. That's the only thing happening in atoms, and that's the only thing causing all phenomena.
Classical of the forces, electromagnetism, arises naturally from quantum electrodynamics.
No, bullshit it does. I mean, naturally. What a joke. Randomly, all kinds of nonsense.
This quantum field theory describes the interaction between electrically charged particles and photons.
So we know that there's no photon pops out of an atom. So this is the big lie, that somehow a single electron can make a photon. Photons are gigantic by polarization, 500 atoms across. So they're humongous compared to the size of an electron. So it'd be idiotic to say you could create a photon by just merely moving an electron. You have to move more than one. You have to have electrons moving in a surface. A bunch of them have to do the moving. And that's why antennas are big, and lots of electrons pushing out and creating a signal. Single electrons can't make a radio wave. You need more than one to do it.
In particular, a charged particle can emit a photon or absorb a photon.
So none of that really happens. They can only absorb pieces of a photon, and it's just momentum that they're absorbing. And so they convert the momentum of the photon, changes the trajectory of the electron. So if the electron was going to move in and out like this, it moves in and out like that. And so it's pushing that way instead of pushing that way. So it's blue shifting that way, and it's not blue shifting that way. That's how force changes where the photon goes, because the photon is just a reflection.
A particle and its antiparticle can combine to become a photon.
Okay, so, but baby talk. I mean, they have no evidence for this shit. I mean, obviously, they never even talked about antimatter and making photons when I was a kid. This is just all made up theory There's no good reason for any rational person to believe they can make photons or make matter or make any of this shit. It's just such a pile of crap.
Or a photon can split into a particle and its antiparticle.
I mean, it's just, how can anybody believe that this is true? This silly fucking hobgoblin story. I mean, this is just such a, this is whatever that is, the guy with the pumpkin head and Sleepy Hollow or whatever. This is just a silly story. It doesn't have anything to do with reality. The antimatter came walking down the street and poofed a photon. I mean, it's just ridiculous crap.
And the only time it looks like a force is during absorption or emission. In that case, it can look something like a push or a pull. But all of these phenomena can be described uniformly by recognizing that this is just a three-particle interaction taking place. Two particles go in, one particle goes out.
Well, it doesn't happen, so it's just crap, okay? You can never convert particles into particles. There's only electrons and protons, that's all there are. There's no other matter in the universe but electrons and protons. There's no other matter in the universe. They're the only matter in the universe. The rest of this stuff is a force bit moving the speed of light that can stick to the electron or stick to a proton, but that's all you have. You have the force carriers, which are the matter bits, and you have the force, which is the photonic energy.
Or vice versa. And it gets weirder if you look at the other forces.
The whole thing is weird and queer and silly and stupid and bullshit.
The force-carrying particles for the strong and weak forces can also self-interact. This means that if we...
self-interact is another... yeah, they can masturbate. I mean, it's just all so damn silly. So why don't you go all the way and then go to Feynman's theory where you could borrow the energy from the future, and pay it back in the past. I mean, just absolute shit.
View these quantum interactions as forces, then the forces could literally push and pull on themselves and be pushed and pulled by other...
Yeah. So why am I listening to this? This is just such crap. I mean, this is just neuron poison. You're just poisoning my neurons with gibberish. Ugh. Imagine a foot with 30 toes on it. Well, no, I don't want to. And a vagina. Yeah, the foot with a vagina. No, I don't want to waste my time imagining a foot with a vagina. Fuck you.
Forces. And that's obviously nonsense. And there's more.
Obvious nonsense is what you're saying. This is all just gibberish some jackass, some nerdy fucktard made up when he was sticking pencils up his ass. This is just such bullshit.
While the weak and strong forces have three-particle interactions like...
Alright, so there's no weak force. They already figured that out because they have to keep changing it and modifying it and because it doesn't mean anything. And again, the strong force is easily understood as that's just the attraction between electrons and protons. I don't need a strong force to make an electron shoot into a proton. That's going to happen all by itself. Charge will produce that effect.
Electromagnetism, they also have four-particle interactions, which can't be thought of classically at all. A classical force can be thought of as a particle absorbing or giving off a force, which is naturally described by three.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, so why all this, like I said, all this abstract mathematical horseshit, and they have no evidence that any of this stuff happens in reality.
Particle interactions. But there is no such intuition for four-particle interactions, because they only happen between force-carrying particles. And they're...
so again, yes, well, anything that's an electron and proton that doesn't move, two electrons that don't move can't interact with each other. Nothing can interact until it's moving. So it has to be able to interact by motion. So yes, it needs to move to interact.
Completely distinct from just two sequential...
I mean, that's not explicitly true. Obviously, I'm interacting right now without moving. I'm reflecting photons. Photons that would have gone through me and you wouldn't see. You're seeing because they're bouncing off of me from just being here. So just being here makes me reactive.
Three-particle interactions. It's like an action, reaction, and re-reaction.
Whatever. It's like booger, snick, snock, snock.
Or something. Now, these strange additional interaction types happen for the strong and weak forces, but not electromagnetism, because they're what are called non-abelian gauge interactions.
Oh, brother. I mean, just this is just such hemorrhoid double anal wart.
whereas electromagnetism is an abelian gauge interaction.
Jesus. I don't want that disease, abeliosis.
Essentially, this means that photons don't have electromagnetic charge.
Oh, well, duh. I mean, it's just so silly, to have this conversation that somehow we haven't figured out that photons aren't charged.
But the force-carrying particles for the weak and strong forces do carry their own charge.
Just the electron and proton, thank you.
And aside from just this general...
I mean, just the idea that they've created all this crap with half charges and quarter, all this mush, and it's just such goddamn mush. You can't make a nucleus out of this horseshit they're talking about. There's no way to build one. The geometry has to be really stable. It has to be really reliable and simple. It don't have none of this crap in it.
Behavior that all non-abelian gauge theories have...
abeliosis again.
The weak interaction can cause particle transmutation. The three particle interactions with the W boson, which is one of the weak force particles, have three different particle types. For example, an electron can emit a W...
Why would you believe this? I'm just saying why. They drew this silly diagram with whatever diodes in it. You would believe this shit? These two things, what? This thing hits a photon and creates a whatever that is, a boogion. And then the boogion comes in from this side and hits this thing and causes a snoticon. I mean, it's just such a pile of shit. Oh, fuck you people. Why do you believe this? This is like whatever, smoking urns in the Catholic Church. You really think that does anything purposeful? I'm smoking on you. Breathe in the holy smoke. You really fall for that shit?
Boson and then turn into a neutrino. This happens because the weak force is partially mediated by bosons that have both mass and charge. And because
it's just amazing that people they actually buy this crap. They just spout this shit. They can't show you any good reason to believe any of it.
The strong interaction is so strong, it can form composite particles called glue balls made entirely of force, which is...
I mean, you don't see how they're just making this crap up. It made a ball out of force. I mean, you just look, I can draw the picture of it, so it must be real, right? Because I drew the picture. I mean, god damn it, people. Oh, I just lived too long. I mean, this is just to live with monkeys talking this kind of babble. This is worse than religion. This is so fucking abstract and stupid.
Even weirder. And that makes no sense under a force-first view of the world. Hopefully, at this point, I've made it clear that a force is only one kind of fundamental interaction.
Whatever that even means, right? So you're just going to make up 4 million forces moving 4 trillion different kinds of particles in their own special little fields, and it's just such a pile of shit.
And in some sense, it's the least interesting. And don't even get me started on gravity.
Yeah, right. Gravity, this simple fucking mechanism where you're obviously in some kind of force differential, right? And you're going in one direction, so it means the differential seems obvious that there's more pressure hitting this way than pressure coming this way. And that's why you're moving this way, because it always works that way. You go from hot to cold. You go from high pressure to low pressure. You never go the other way around. So you kind of know it must be more pressure over there, up there, than there is coming from down there. And that's why I fall. It's because there's more pressure coming one way than the other way. And what could account for that? Oh yeah, that 5,000 degrees that's underneath me. I guess that 5,000 degrees used up something that would have been here to keep me floating. But the stuff couldn't get here to keep me floating because it's making 5,000 degrees of heat inside the core of the Earth. So that's why it's not here to keep me floating. I just can't believe people are just fucking stupid. Oh, fuck. Anyway. Alright. So I really have just lived past utility. Because, obviously the majority of people are just batshit fucking retarded. Belligerently silly, stupid fucktards. Alright, so we do have one comment. Let's see. I don't see how people watch videos like this and walk away feeling educated or enlightened. Yeah, it's just like they're selling you just the biggest pile of horseshit ever. I mean, they have this little handheld snow remover now. They're just, oh yeah, sure, I'm sure. Yeah, and it's got like a 4-hour battery life, and it weighs 1 pound, and yeah, sure. You know, who is this content even for? I mean, it's obviously not for the uneducated, right? And then I mean, even if you're mildly educated, are you really going to know what that hypotubalopocalypse is? You know, the whatever the fuck he was talking about. Oh, you mean I have to go Google all that crap? Yeah. Oh, it's just so bad. I sincerely doubt that there's many serious engineers in the comment section. I just seriously doubt there's any serious human beings. Just because I don't know how you could be a serious human being and say, yes, tell me another story, Daddy, about, you know, and they're not even hobgoblins, right? I mean, they're just some kind of weird abstraction called Benishu. You know, like it's almost like some Hindu religion or something. So Venishu is said to Kakapapu to go take a Ricky and Smicky smack. And you're like, what the fuck do I got to do with that? I can't make anything out of that gibberish. But oh fuck, it's just so bad. To anyone else watching, it is going to just sound like rambling madmen, or they might memorize a bunch of nonsense thinking they're smart. Well, that's what the whole thing is about. I mean, you know, it's like Dirac, you know, writes a babbly equation, and it's so fucked up and wrong that it's not balanced because of the mv squared thing again. And so then he decides, well, if I make a bunch of antimatter, I can fix it. I mean, it's just too stupid. It's like the extra dimensions where they just sweep all their errors into the other dimension. Oh, well, we don't have enough energy. Well, let's borrow some from the 7th dimension. There's lots of energy in the 7th dimension. Let's go get some there. I mean, it's just such a crock of shit. Anyway, I thought of Hinduism too when I was thinking about these quantum theories. Yeah, it is just, you know, it's all ghosts and goblins and spookies and wookies. Yeah, Wookiees. It's Wookiees and Watusis and, oh, it's just no point. So reason has left the building. There just aren't any reasonable humans anymore. Fuck. It's so depressing. Damn. So anyway, not much to say. I'd say, this is just so bad that everybody believes this crap. Again, they've never even seen a quark. I mean, quarks have been talked about, been in movies. You know, I remember whatever it was, that stupid movie with the Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, right? Whatever. And she was the physicist, and she was doing her little speech about quarks and the strange quark and the happy quark and the loopy quark. And you were just like, you know, this is so... Well, why do people believe this shit? I mean, why? This convoluted, insane explanation for something as simple as a positive charge. I mean, it's a little ball that's positively charged. I mean, why are they turning it into, well, it's made out of this crap? I mean, it's just so silly. To even think you could break a proton, it just seems like, why do you even think you can really do that? I remember as one of them, yeah, strange as and that's, oh, that's so special. That was like her, you know, favorite little orgasmic one. Ooh, yeah. It really is. It's just some crystal religion. I mean, physics has just become some kind of silly little spooky crystal religion, New Ager religion, you know. It's just so fucking stupid. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, there's just no more point in me just ranting about how incomprehensibly gibberishy everything they say is. And I'm just saying, if you research it, again, it all turns out to be lies. You know, where they say they did the double slit experiment with electrons, they did this, and they did that, and they didn't do any of this shit. You know, and then they say, oh, we did a better experiment than the the Eddington experiment. They didn't do any better experiments. They did much less better experiments. Experiments much more vulnerable to explanation as scatter and other defects rather than gravity. So they're just such liars. And yet people believe. Why do they want the universe to be a sick, silly little Smurfaville? I mean, maybe that's it. They grew up on this Smurf shit. And so they want the universe to be some kind of fake world, you know, with fake, phony characters in it. I mean, they can't deal with reality, so they have to have a mystical, you know, Henry Potter world, or, you know, Lord of the Ring world, where you can just hold your little magic stick and do things with your stick, and, you know, everything has to be magic and phantasmagorical. You know, yuck. Alright, I am just complaining, so I'll stop doing that and move along. So I guess I'm tired enough to say I don't want to do another one of those videos, so I will just move along. So, yeah, I don't know why we're just not attracting any participants, and that's just unfortunate. At least the numbers don't look good from whatever YouTube's showing me, and that is discouraging, that there's so few people interested in any of this conversation. They just want reaffirmation of their religion. Tell me more happily ever after stories. Really is pathetic. Alright, so till it be the next time and such and so forth and whatnot.